Good morning. My name is Paul Gordon. I'm a small business owner in the state of California, and I want to share with you something that I believe could have a major impact on the U.S. economy. It's not a panacea, but I believe it has significant benefits, and you be the judge after I finish presenting it. We are in very, very challenged times. The economic situation is more severe and more dire than most people recognize, with millions and millions of people being out of work and millions of businesses being closed down. It's severe, it's significant. What I want to share with you is an idea and a proposal that could be implemented by the U.S. government in conjunction with other programs that are being implemented here. One of the interesting facts is that the restaurant industry is one of the hardest hit industries, and we understand why, and it's because of the requirement for non-gathering, social isolation, and the vicious, contagious nature of the coronavirus. So one of the interesting statistics here for you to ponder is that there's over 1 million restaurants in the United States. They employ over 15 million people. And it's close to $1 trillion worth of revenue. So if you look at our GDP, it's a major contribution to our economy. And most restaurants are substantially shut down. Yes, there's some takeout. Yes, you can still go to a franchise and maybe get in line, but drive up and down your local town, most restaurants are completely shut down. It's a massive shock to the economy, and it's contributed to a significant amount of unemployment. So you need to recognize the role statistically, both numerically and revenue-wise, that the restaurant industry provides here in the United States. So if you look at this, you can read through my bullet points, but I'll talk you through the concept. It's pretty obvious. Before the pandemic hit, if you were to look at the distribution of food consumption dollars, I'm going to round up the numbers. About 40% of food consumption dollars was spent at restaurants, and about 60%, for sake of discussion, was spent at grocery stores. Now enter pandemic. Nobody's going to the restaurants, so to keep the concept simple, now you basically have close to 100% of the revenue that's targeted at grocery stores because people aren't going to restaurants. The interesting phenomena here is that people are not eating less or going to the bathroom less. They're still doing all of that. It's just a matter of where they're doing it. So in this case, restaurants suffer. Grocery stores have increased in business. That's why you see hoarding, empty shelves. Besides the panicking, it's people are now displacing other places they used to go eat and now taking it out in packaged goods that they can buy, at the grocery store. So what has got to happen in order to change this and get the restaurants back on the map, and I'll talk about the importance of doing that, is you've got to get people buying food through restaurants again. So let's take a look at something else, and this is what triggered this particular concept in my mind. I read an article. You can see the date of this little presentation when I wrote it on April 10th. There was an article that came out about the fishing industry. Sorry I didn't put the link in here. You can probably Google it, but the fishing industry is being destroyed. And the reason for that is, I never even really thought about it, is in the United States, the vast majority of fresh fish that is caught, it's caught, sent to fish processors, and it's shipped to restaurants, okay, whether it be hotels or the restaurants, on your street in your community. But basically, like over 90% of the fish that's caught goes to restaurants. Most fish is not purchased like at the supermarket and things like that. Most people consume fish when they go out for dinner. That's where the market for fish is. Well, no restaurants, no consumption of fresh fish. You put a pencil to it, now you've got 160,000 fishermen and all of their boats that are basically ready to entirely hit the brick wall because there's no demand for their product. And it doesn't matter if you give it away for free. If nobody's going to restaurants, there's no demand for it. What's been happening, as a little side note, some of the bigger food processors or fish processors have been trying to continue to buy the food as long as they can, or the fresh fish, process it, freeze it, but they're reaching the limit of doing that only because they have no place to ship all the frozen food. So we are about to risk losing our fishing industry. Think about that, okay? It's ruinous for the United States. So you've got the restaurant industry, you've got this commercial fishing industry problem here. We need a restart plan, folks. And, we've heard this from the U.S. government, and let's leave out all the politics and all of the issues here. There's no doubt about it, okay? So we've been shut down, the mandates to shelter in place. We get all the benefits of it. But somewhere along the way, we need to find a way to reactivate appropriately parts of the economy in a step fashion, because you have to turn the machine back on. You cannot close off the oxygen and blood supply. The system will choke and die, and at some point will not be able to be resuscitated. That's the real message. So reignite the supply chain. The acronym RISK, reignite supply chain. Just remember that. That's an important concept. Here is the big idea. I'm going to call it, for lack of a better nomenclature, the Restaurant Protection Program, RPP. And I kind of took that off of the program that the U.S. government has put out, which is the Payroll Protection Program. So let me walk you through this concept. And don't read all this text. You can do it later. I'm happy to email you the presentation. You can go back to the opening slide and request it, and I'll send you a little slide deck. But it goes like this. And I'm going to use, starting with the fishing industry, as the bottom of the supply chain here. If we went ahead and subsidized the fishing industry, and we would do it in such a way that we would make loans available through the SBA to fishermen. They could go show up, take out a loan for $200,000, and it's a debt that they've incurred. However, they could get credits, meaning the loan would be forgiven if they did the following. If they went ahead and sold their fish product at, I'm making up the numbers by way of example, but I'm going to use the numbers because I think they're probably in the neighborhood of what would make sense. If they discounted the cost of the fish by 50%, and sold it at 50% of what they regularly sold it to restaurants for, then the U.S. government would allow an equal credit on the loan that they took. So if they were selling lobster, I'm making up the numbers, at $1 a pound, they before the pandemic, now they would sell the lobster at 50 cents a pound to the restaurants, and they would be able to make up the 50% difference as a credit against the loan that they took. And the loan, by the way, could be processed and administered in the exact same way that they're doing it with the Payroll Protection Plan. Apply through the SBA. It would have to be forgiven by the bank that wrote the loan. We won't go through all the procedures, but just think of it as a parallel effort to the Payroll Protection Plan. So that's like phase one, and let's use the fishing industry as the basis of this. Then now you have to go, well, it does no good if you sell fish at 100% off. There's nobody to order it, and there's no demand. So what you do is you go to the restaurants and you do the same program. You tell them that they can go and take the Restaurant Protection Program loan. They show up at an SBA, fill out the form. They can borrow 100, 200, 300, 500,000, whatever the number is. And they would go ahead and they would be able to get credits against their loan if they sold their meals at a 40 or 50% discount. I put 40% in here. I'm going to use 50%. It's easier to talk about the numbers. So what this means is if they were selling a hamburger at $14, now they would sell the hamburger at $7 to us, me, you, the consumer. And you go, well, who would be foolish enough to do that? Well, follow my line of logic. So now the restaurant hangs its sign out there and says, hamburgers, 50% off, okay, whatever the meal is, right? Now, the U.S. government, local governments, they all promote, go back to your restaurants and buy their meals. They're incredible bargains. They're 50% off. Well, if you put a pencil to it and you could buy all these meals at 50% off, I would tell you probably 80% of America would be lining up at restaurants to go order meals. So the proposal is that, in fact, you do this, and you do it for pickup meals only. So you keep the social distancing. You can go pick it up outside, you can order it online, you can order it through DoorDash, all the great things, but it's pickup only, not in the restaurant. So what it does is if you put this program into place and all of a sudden there was this massive discount on food through restaurants, and as a consumer you said, oh my God, why would I hassle going to the supermarket when I can go get a meal for the family at $30, whatever the example is. It's a phenomenal bargain. What this does is it now creates a incredible injection. It's like putting gas on the fire for demand for the food product through the restaurants, and now the restaurants rehire the people to cook, clean, basically do all the things that you do in the restaurant, but do it on a pickup only. And now they're ordering the food supply goods from the fisheries and other food suppliers that supply the restaurant industry. What you've just done is you have reignited the whole supply chain for what is arguably one of the bigger industries in the United States. The other big issue here is from a visibility standpoint and a human psychology standpoint. If all of a sudden you're driving down, go out this morning, today, and drive down your retail street, it's like at a twilight zone. It's scary, okay? We all get that. Now, if this were implemented and you could push a few buttons, and we know it's more complicated than that, and you could implement this plan, and you saw that there were, some modest lines, socially distanced, for people to go pick up food, and you could go get it at basically half the price, and there was activity downtown to pick up food, all of a sudden you would have a little better feeling about life, and there's a little bit of activity kicking back up, and you would, I think, feel a little bit more positive that, the world is turning back on. Well, if you could do all of this, it would dramatically increase the employment. It would save hundreds of thousands of restaurants that are either out of business, going out of business, or are shuttered up if we implemented a program like this. I hope you get the drift of this whole program here, and it could be implemented in a very similar fashion. So it makes sense because it'll drive instant job growth. It keeps current businesses and ones that are closed, it'll put them back into business very, very quickly. It brings consumers back into the market. That's you and I. And we get the forceful reminder, through whatever, the government wants to do and say, help America. It's the God's honest truth. Get out, buy your meals, or a good portion of them through the restaurants to get the commercial activity flowing again, so we can save the whole food restaurant industry and the whole related supply chain and the millions of jobs that are associated with that. Now, this is not an expensive program. I get it. I'll let people that are a lot smarter than I figure it out. But I'm going to tell you this. A lot of the programs that are in place right now, they're a complete waste of money. They're going nowhere. They're not going to provide an economic benefit. They're feel good from a written standpoint. I'll give you an example. The payroll protection program, it misses the boat for the vast majority of small businesses. Well-intentioned, but not thought out. Perfect example is, if you don't know about the program, I'm not going to go through the details, but it basically says, hey, come borrow some money based on your average monthly payroll. We'll let you borrow about 2.5 months worth of money, and we'll give you credits back for the money that you borrowed. It'll be forgiven as long as you continue to employ basically the same number of people on the same payroll. Well, the problem is, and by the way, you have to use it up within an 8-week period from the time that you receive the money. So let's apply that to a restaurant. If your restaurant is closed today, right? Because most of them are, and you get this loan, and let's say you get $200,000 loan for the payroll protection program. Well, you can't go rehire your employees for the upcoming 8 weeks. What are they going to do? Go polish forks and spoons? You can't open your restaurant. It's closed down because of all the social mandates. So it does absolutely nothing by way of example for these restaurants, and you can follow that example for so many businesses. So at a high level, sounds good, but it's not injecting the money in to save the businesses. My proposal for the restaurant protection program, it's direct money where it counts, consuming food, which you and I eat every single day. That has not stopped. It's a matter of where we get it, and by virtue of rechanneling where we spend our money, by making it a bargain, I will show up at my local restaurant and order some portion of my food to go pick up and to go. We reignite the whole system here. So it's the concept I'm pushing here. Forget the individual numbers. You get the idea. The government money is going to be given away. You can go through all the, humdrum discussion about where's the money going to come from. I got news for you folks. They're printing money from the sky. It's the only thing that the U.S. government can ultimately do in order to reignite this economy. They may as well find a way to get it down to you and me and the small businesses that employ millions and millions of people. So this is my proposal, and I throw it out. You can make of it what you will, but if you go through this one more time and you think about it, and if I ask you to ponder if this were implemented tomorrow morning, and all these restaurants, and let's use the fish industry, they all were able to pick up loans in a matter of a week or two, and money was flowing, and you were able to go ahead and get meals at 30, 40, 50% discount to what they were being sold for before. I think you can see gas would have been thrown on the economic supply chain, and things would reignite. So I ask you to forward this to whomever you think may be appropriate. Starting places would be your governor, Chamber of Commerce, the White House, restaurant industry, fishing industry. Anybody and everybody float the idea. We all need to push for efforts and programs that make sense. The $1,200 check is great, but it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't get people back to work. It takes care of people that are in dire need, but it's not going to reignite the economy. So we need programs that are going to put people back to work. So thank you very much for listening. It's just one person's idea, and I hope it turns into something. Thank you very much.